What is up, and welcome to another episode 40 of State of My Art podcast. I'm your host, Mike Liorti. Thanks for joining me today. If this is your first time checking out the pod, thanks for coming and giving it a chance. On today's episode, I zoom over to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to chat with my good friend, Rishi Bahl. Rishi is the frontman and songwriter of a band called Eternal Boy. They used to be called the Space Pimps. They're really big in Pittsburgh and in Europe and all over the world. He's very talented, very hardworking. He's also a professor. He teaches marketing because he's just a genius with that. He also runs Four Chord Music Festival, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's happening on September 17th, a week from now. Rise Against, The Used, State Champs, Mayday Parade, The Menzingers, 4 Years Strong, Real Friends, The Ataris, Bearings. We had Doug Cousins on episode 3, Patent Pending. The list goes on and on. Eternal Boy is playing it, obviously, as well. So check out Four Chord Music Festival, happening September 17th in Pittsburgh. Get your tickets, fly there, and go see this incredible show. I wish I could. I think Noah is going to be there, so maybe he's going to go check it out. So let's jump into it. My Zoom call with Rishi Bahl happened on Thursday, September 2nd, 2021. Well, we're really doing it. Welcome to the show, Rishi Bahl, my good friend over in Pittsburgh. How you doing, sir?
I am existing. That's the best we can say at this point.
Yeah, this must have been a crazy year and a half for you with your festival, Four Chord Music Festival, your band, Eternal Boy. You also teach, you're a professor.
Yeah. It's been every industry I am in or part of has been. Can I swear on this or no?
Yeah, you could cuss your face off.
It's been fucked for the last year and a half. So it's been, we're getting by. It's things started to look up. Now they don't look as up as they did before, but whatever, you adapt. That's what people do.
Yeah, I've always been super impressed and inspired with all that you've got going on, and you're able to juggle. I don't know when you have the time to sleep.
Well, I don't sleep often, but I appreciate that. I feel the same about you, man. I've been a fan. Dude, I told you even when you came to Pittsburgh, I was a fan of Rosedale for years, dude, before we even really knew each other. And now, I'm absolutely blown away by your new stuff. It came out of left field for me, but the feeling is mutual nonetheless.
Well, thanks, man. I was more of a old school DIY touring kind of guy, and that was my life. And now I'm figuring out the social media side of things, or at least trying to with this podcast, and trying to have a conversation about the things that we do so that people could kind of understand where we came from and how and why we do these crazy things that we do. But first, I want to let people know a little more about what you do, and I want to get into where you're at with this year's Four Chord Music Fest, because not only was it canceled 2 years in a row because of COVID, or pushed back this second year, but what happened when you heard about the Mark Hoppus situation, and where are you at with that?
All very good questions that I've yet to really talk about, I guess, openly at least, without people internally. But Four Chord Music Fest was booked March 2020. I announced it was Blink-182, The Used, State Champs, a bunch of other bands. Obviously, people that may be listening to this know how important Blink is to me. I'm sure you feel very similar to that in that world, but it's been a lifelong dream to get Blink for the festival that I do, and got it. I announced on a Monday, went on sale on a Friday, and the United States shut down on that following Tuesday. So that first weekend was ridiculous. Obviously, the reception of it and the lineup and stuff was ridiculous. But, then we were just in waiting period, and finally, May hit. It was supposed to be in July of 2020. And, I spoke with Blink. It sounds so cool, but Blink's agent, and we were just like, "Yo, this isn't gonna work." Obviously, and so we pushed it to July 2021. Everything was ready to roll, added some bands, kind of spruced up the lineup even more. And then, so I was ready to move the date from July. I wanted to give a little more time to September because things were looking really good in, May. And so Blink's agent was like, yeah, let's push it to September. If you can get all the bands, Blink's good to go. Did that, contract signed, everything ready to roll. And then I got a frantic email from their agent at 3 a.m. And at first, all that was said was that, there's been some ridiculous things happening and we can't, Blink's on hold for all of 2021. So then I pried more and, ultimately found out, that Mark was diagnosed with lymphoma. And, at first I was really pissed. I was like, fuck this, dude. How are they going to, how is this going to happen now again post COVID? And when I found out, dude, it was devastating for me personally. I know you're a Blink guy. I think you're more of a Tom guy though, if I can, characterize you from the outside, but it's crazy. And, it's stage 4A, or 4B, I think it is. So wow. It's pretty serious. I'm really upset about it. Obviously, at that point for the festival, I had to pivot a little bit. And, their agency and their agents were super nice about it. Normally, agents are not very nice, as you will find out. Well, they'll be nice to you now that you have an agent representing you. But
agents have done me dirty in the past, for sure.
For Rosedale?
Yeah, I've never actually had the chance to have an agent for Rosedale, but I've definitely had other agents for other bands kick me off bills at 6 a.m. when they found out I wasn't local, things like that. Yeah, day of the show. Yeah,
happened to me thousands of times too, man. But so I got Rise Against to replace Blink, and it's not really there's no replacement for Blink 182. It just doesn't exist in our genre. So it was more of a pivot. Offered refunds, but Four Chord Music Festival is still happening. It's in 2 weeks from tomorrow, September 17th in Pittsburgh, PA, at one of our one of our Pittsburgh Pirates, our baseball team's minor league stadium. So it's just very complicated now, obviously, with COVID now making, another push. So most of the talk now is about, mitigation of virus in the venue itself, but a lot of restrictions, a lot of shit that's maybe out of my wheelhouse that I'm prepping for now, but it's a go. It's almost sold out. So it's still I think a lot of people kept tickets, even though Blink had canceled, rightfully so, but it's going okay. If this were a normal year, I would be totally stoked about absolutely everything about it, between the lineup and tickets sold and, the press and everything. I'd be totally stoked. But of course, my responsible mind tells me, wow, this is really, really, really fucked up.
Yeah, as musicians, I talk about the curse a lot and how our lives would be one insane video game if someone wanted to make a Tony Hawk Pro Skater-esque video game about trying to climb up as anyone in the industry, whether you're a musician or promoter. And I think you would be a very interesting character in this video game I got brewing up.
Sick. Let's do it. You've done everything else. You might as well try that.
Oh yeah. Try watch some YouTube tutorials on how to create video games. But man, I'm so sorry to hear that. Obviously, the Hoppus thing was devastating. As much as I am a huge Tom fan, I love every member of Blink. Like brothers, those guys raised me, and I got to meet Mark in San Diego shortly after I moved here. I was just working downtown. It was I think it was during Comic-Con when they were playing that. Just such a nice dude, and I was so wow. It just was inspiring for a while that I was like, I'm actually meeting these dudes, and we were sharing a rehearsal room with Angels and Airwaves, and they gave us all their 2019 cables, because every tour they get all new cables, so we have the ultimate power running through our amps.
Are they Megami cables?
They're all different cables. Ernie Ball cables, speaker cables that like were just kind of handmade, and it's all quarter inches, which
right.
Of course every band needs XLRs, but we got lots of quarter inches now.
So you were, how long have you been in California now? Because that was a while ago Blink did that, right?
Yeah, so all of 2019 I was down here, and I started working at this place that they were really good friends with Angels and Airwaves, and they did their private secret show there in September of this year. But in 2019, it was like those guys were coming through near the end of the year, practicing, getting ready for that tour, and we got to go see them at House of Blues. So that year was like the best year of my life, man. Just finally, you know, saying yes to working a 9 to 5 and saying yes to playing in another band that's not my own.
Dude, how weird was that? That's something I really wanted to talk to you about. I mean, you've put, I don't know, obviously I've been doing this maybe as long as you, maybe longer, I don't know. But I know that I don't know if I know anybody that's put as much into themselves and like their music. I put that in quotations, obviously. I don't mean that in a bad way. Obviously, I mean it in a real, again, not to overuse the term inspiring, but like you didn't give a shit, dude, what people thought about you, what people thought about the solo thing or whatever, dude. I mean, to go from putting that much time and effort, which I know you did, it was clear that you did, even if we're not close friends, I still knew that you did. And then to go, and I guess you joined another band first in San Diego or in California, then you started a new one with these dudes.
Basically, we were called Mainsail when I joined, and I had played a few shows with those dudes at Soma. Anytime I would tour through, and then we would hang out, and Nick was coming into the studio with me because I had started recording some of my new stuff, which is still not out, down in Santee, El Cajon. So me and Nick were already like hanging out, and then when I finally moved down here, we were playing acoustic shows together. I'd play a couple Mainsail songs, he'd play a couple Rosedale songs, we'd do a couple covers and make a few bucks. And then they needed a bass player, and I was like, you know what, I already know half your songs, why don't I just fill in for now? And then it was like, hey, if I'm gonna live down here and not play shows under Rosedale for a while, I miss playing shows, I may as well play in your band. And then we lost our guitar player, he quit, and then we basically just decided to start a whole new thing once we were on a new label and we had all these new songs. We changed the name to Summer Years after a lot of different name ideas were taken. Did the whole trademark thing, did the whole LLC thing, and we're like finally this vessel that can move into being a legitimate band. But yeah, I mean, I totally understand why people thought it was crazy that I was doing this one-man thing, and that it came off as maybe, entitled or narcissistic or, all about myself. And I totally was. And I am still of the mindset of you have to be. If you're going to be an artist, you have to not give a shit what anybody thinks. You have to be all about yourself. I'm like really inspired by not only, pop punk goats like Tom DeLonge, who are like very all over the place and always thinking of different ideas, but even guys like Lil Wayne really inspire me because that dude is literally, he thinks he's the best rapper in the world and no one can touch him, and he's from another planet. And that has made him put out 1,000 songs a year. That has made him work 16 to 20 hours a day because he thinks, I have this gift that no one else has. And I think he gets, and a lot of these artists, Lady Gaga, everybody thinks that they are meant to do this music thing, even though more than ever it's so saturated and everybody thinks they are. But as soon as I took a step back and joined another band and worked a 9 to 5, I started getting very humbled and realizing, wait, I maybe can have a band, or maybe people do want to see me with a band, even though I'm a control freak and I can't get everybody to play the parts exactly how I play them. And that's frustrating to me. But I found a couple musicians down here who are willing to put up with my OCD for now. We'll see how long it lasts.
I have a bunch of friends like you too. I mean, even here in Pittsburgh, there's a good friend of mine that, has that mentality. I think that, I guess I came from the mindset always that like I'm not a good musician. I'm a really good songwriter, I think, and I think that changes my stance on, at least from the actual like craft of writing music and being a musician. Like I think I'm a mediocre musician. Granted, I can play all the instruments, right? But at the end of the day, I realized a long time ago that being a okay musician and writing great songs, like everybody can do that. So what is the competitive advantage going to be? How are you going to differentiate yourself? So I really focus much more on the social factor, maybe 6 years ago. And then we were called the Space Pimps for years, and we did a rebrand. So, I mean, it's not the exact same as, as what you did here with Summer Years, but like, it's a similar situation that I realized that I needed to really invest in the social capital, as opposed to, always having the best recordings and always, going with a producer, getting Ted Jensen to master it and getting Chris O'Dowd to mix it like that. Though that shit to you and me is like still so cool. And like a friend of mine's band just got mixed by Tom Lord-Alge, and I was like a part of me, like that little thing inside of me, it was like, oh fuck, I got to do that. They did it. But then I'm like, yo, dude, like we're all on the same team. So like if you succeed, I feel like in a way everybody succeeds,
Yeah, and this came up with my boss and keyboard player in Summer Years and roommate Noah. He was on the podcast. It's like, where is it most important these days to invest your time and money? And it's funny how all artists, especially in our genre, kind of start out thinking, I got to have the best gear. Like I got to get the gear that the big bands have. I got to have an 810. I got to have a 412. I got to be loud. And then you soon realize like, oh, wait, that stuff isn't going to make me sound good. The mix and master and production is what really matters. Okay, I got to invest my money there. And then you get a great sounding recording. And then you're like, wait, none of this means anything if no one is going to hear it. I need to invest in advertising and, as crazy as it seems to just throw $100 at Facebook and hope people see you. And how do you even do that? How do you target it? And you're a marketing guru, so how do you do it? Like for a band, just like finally realizing that wait, it's not about having the best recording, it's about marketing. What's the first thing you would tell them to do?
Oh my God, dude! That's a semester long course, my friend. But So right up front, for me, it's all about organization, right? So for years and years and years, and we had no track record or legitimate history of how many records we sold, other than the ones that were, on iTunes or right before streaming hit. So to me, right up front was like, yo, we got to get this shit organized. So, when Rolling Stone I'm trying to pitch us to Rolling Stone magazine, and they're like, yo, your socials are okay, but we need to see a track record, a history of sales. It's like, all right, well, let's do that. So the first thing is always to be organized. The biggest thing that we did for Eternal Boy that changed our, we'll say, trajectory was getting a Nielsen SoundScan account. And ultimately, I started a label outside of Four Chord Music Festival called Four Chord Music, and I got it through the label. And that tracked every record we sold. When we were on tour in 2018, when we first changed the name and we had released our first record, we were on tour selling, 100 CDs a night. Whether it was 50 at a show or 20 in a parking lot, like now I can actually legitimately track all this, and people can see it's not just, oh, you're that band that was on Warped Tour and followed it and sold 300 CDs a day that I can't document. So that's first, is organization. There's something in marketing called integrated marketing, which is essentially making sure that all of your platforms are exactly the same, right? In terms of aesthetic, in terms of vibe, in terms of feel. Because when a consumer goes or a listener goes, they're used to already going to a Nike.com. They're used to going to a Spotify.com, where everything is branded perfectly, everything is in place. So that's number one, is if your songs kick ass, which is presumably they would, you got to get organized. And then the second thing to that is something called conversion rate. So I am no longer impressed with how many likes you have on Facebook. I am no longer impressed. The industry is no longer impressed about how many Instagram followers you have. What matters is the amount of fans you can convert. So if you have 100 followers on Instagram and 99 buy your record, that is exactly what I want, rather than having 1 million followers and 16 be converted. So I'm much more focused on, catering to your already existing fan base, and then ultimately that has a ripple effect down the line.
Okay, so converting fans from basically, I heard this in a audiobook recently, from basically beginner fans to purchasing fans.
100%.
Yeah, everybody talks about how you don't need to be a Grammy-winning artist to make it in the music industry. You just need 1,000 loyal fans that are willing to spend $50 to $100 a year on your band.
100%. And dude, that is every business. Like I do consulting with businesses also outside of as being a professor and stuff. It's like these companies and brands and bands and artists and record labels are so fixated on, your Spotify numbers, you're this, you're that. I am a much bigger advocate on, and again, when I made that decision and when we changed the name to Eternal Boy and I got serious about conversion rates, we are a profitable band at this point. We are able to obviously completely be self-sufficient and then some. If we want to go tour the UK, I mean, we tour internationally probably when it's not a pandemic, right. Pretty often. It's not a big deal now. Nobody has to worry about money for tickets. No one has to worry about traveling, in a van when we get there. It's all about conversion rates. It's about making the current existing fan base happy. And again, that's not ignoring new fans, but if you get those 1,000 fans, it is impossible for that to not go viral to other people. Not like viral completely, but viral to their friends and their family and their, people that they're around.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's just my thing with that is in music, for some reason, it's hard to show how much conversion you're getting out of your fans to someone like a label, or maybe it just is for me, but I had a lot of followers, still kind of do, and I follow everybody back because of that Warped Tour hustle in the parking lot, right? Like, that's how I probably got the majority of my followers. And then when I'd go out on tour, I was profitable, but it didn't really look that way because I was doing such small scale venues and such small scale things. It was all very DIY. I didn't have many middlemen. A lot of these shows, I was becoming the promoter, and that's kind of why I wanted to hit the brakes on it too, is I was kind of tired of spending 6 to 8 hours a day being a promoter, making sure the bands picked up their tickets, designing the ticket, getting the ticket printed at the local Pittsburgh print shop. It becomes a full-time job, and then at the end of the 5-month tour, I'm like, when's the last time I wrote a freaking song?
Dude, that's spot on. And I live in, if you could look at my, the office that I have right now, I mean, it is to the brim, dude. I have 24 hand sanitizing stations I just bought from staples.com for the festival. I have fucking all access pass. I have wristbands. I have riders for bands, alcohol buys. I mean, it really, I don't need to tell you this. I told you this in Pittsburgh, but dude, you have to love the grind, I think, to really, to do it, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to get burnt out just because you love grinding and you're grinding. I think that, in terms of conversion rates and in terms of how do you show that, that's a large reason why I ultimately decided to do the SoundScan thing. And it's expensive. It can be expensive to hold an account. It can be expensive to do that whole thing. But that's one trackable thing that's indisputable, right? I mean, we don't fuck with our Spotify numbers or I don't give a shit about any of it. I mean, I do care. I don't give a shit about what it looks like to Hopeless Records. I don't care what it looks like to Virgin. And as you probably have, we've had every close call you could think of with every label that you could possibly imagine. And at the end of the day, they're all the same, man. All they are in 2021 is a marketing firm. Distribution, you do not need them anymore. All you need them for is their YouTube subscription channel, the popular by association tag, which certainly works. Of course, it opens doors to agents, so on and so forth, and management. But at the end of the day, it's marketing. It's all about marketing.
Those 4 things, though, that you just listed are everybody thinks that I'm this DIY guy who's all against having an agent, having a label, and that I'm pushing away that as well as I'm pushing away band members. But the truth is, I want all of that stuff because I see the fruits that come from it. And I need that SoundScan account, and I don't want to spend the money on doing it. So if a label wants to help me, that's awesome. So
at what cost though? You need to always ask yourself I mean, dude, like we're like what in our early 30s here now, right? So it's like I'm like, how do I say this without sounding like I've been jaded by every record label and told to fuck off by every record label. I'm just not impressed anymore when someone comes to me and says, dude, we just signed a fucking hopeless record. And I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that to me, when I was young, and you know, I really treasure those times when I was young, as I know you do. I've heard the stories at your Rosedale shows talking about your first concert, your first guitar, like your first, like it is like romanticized for me in my brain, even in my early 30s. It's like that nothing will ever touch that point in time. But I'm not that person in terms of business minded anymore. And I know that at what cost is always what I ask every label. We met when we changed the band name. Right when we changed the band name in 2018, we met with a really big record label. And they said, you know, I was very, very recalcitrant to wanting to change the band name. I basically told them to fuck off. And then 3 months later, we changed it anyway. And you know, at the end of the day, I think that, you know, I'm not willing to give up certain things that every record label and every booking agent, and not every booking agent, but every record label wants to take. Four Chord Music, I've signed 4 or 5 bands. I'll show you a copy of the contracts, dude. They are not the traditional, you know, in perpetuity contracts, but I'm a little jaded, I think, by the label and like the outside, the candy-coated shell. I'm signed to this label or we're managed by this. I think the most important thing you need is a booking agent, which is why I messaged you when I found out that you did that. I think that is the end-all, be-all. And most of the time, Mike, you will get signed and then you will get forced to a booking agency because this label has, you know, connections or they're friends with. You have done it backwards, which is what I will tell every single band on planet Earth to do.
Yeah. Now, my point was, so I'm never really going after the, clout of having a label. My whole thing is I see the value in a team. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because I'm Mr. DIY. But I definitely see the value in a team, especially if everybody is loving the grind and everyone's after the same vision and purpose and intentions. And with this label that we're on, NT Records, they've done everything that we wanted a label to do for us. They've marketed us, and I don't think that the labels are as nasty as a lot of musicians come to realize they are. Now, I've heard a lot of horror stories, but my mind always goes back to standing outside of the San Francisco venue, thinking like, wow, this is getting so hard to do this on my own. I could really use some help. Night after night after night going through that epiphany of, oh my gosh, when am I going to get my break? And then I see other bands able to go on these big tours because they got on that agency, because they were on that label, and the agency is only willing to work with them because they like that relationship with that label. So I get that that's how the industry works. So that's kind of what I'm chasing with my new stuff, is like, I just need some help. And to your question, at what cost, I stand from where I am as this DIY guy in my 30s and think, man, as long as I am living night to night with that dream that I've had since I was 14, which I feel like some nights I am. Like some nights I was able to live that on my own. I'm playing the big venue in Colorado. I managed to squeeze my way on that Hawthorne Heights show. So in a lot of ways, I'm like, all right, I'm at that stage that I wanted to be at 18 still. And to get to the next level has been so hard. And a lot of my mentors are like, well, why don't you try and like pitch it to this label and get a little bit of help? I'm like, please do help me do that. So that's another reason why I took a step back and I was like, it's time to get to the next level. I can't keep spinning my tires. I thought I was going to, as quick as I'm gaining followers doing this thing, I'm losing just as many as they have kids and move on as well, right? So to the 1,000 fans, it's like, yeah, that seems like, hey, I'm getting 100 each tour. All I got to do is 10 tours. It doesn't necessarily work that way, especially when you're doing it all yourself. 100 leave as quick as 100 come.
Very, very good point. And, you know, I guess I now that I'm retrospectively thinking, like I'm not anti-team. I guess a team is super important, obviously, and you don't always have the time to do some of the micro level things that bands have to do, and that's what a label does. That's what a manager can do and a booking agent can do, and it lets you focus on things that you need to do. The thing is that, as you know, there are very few legitimate booking agents. There are very few legitimate record labels. So when people come to me and say, "Yo, check out our team, dude," it's like, "Oh, cool, dude." It's like the guy that booked my show in Rochester, New York, is your manager. But dude, don't get me wrong. Those. I believe in people believing in what you're doing 100%, unequivocally, without equivocation. I will work with a bum on the street if they're like, dude, like I can't get your shit out of my brain, I just think I always ask at what cost, because I think that at the end of the day, getting taken advantage of is worse than anything you could possibly imagine.
I agree with that. And that reminds me, like, the one thing that you were harping on me for at that Pittsburgh show was, why don't you get a band at least so you have a team to help you move this 100%. Trailer worth of gear down the stairs, and you stuck around even though you had an early morning. I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday night.
Yeah, I remember.
And helped me unload, and I kept saying to you, dude, I will gladly unload all this gear for an extra hour than have to deal with how band members have taken advantage of me, left me in the middle of tours. And honestly, like, the one-man show was going way better for me because people saw that. They were like, this guy is done with the bullshit and he's given us all he's got. And
100%.
I literally hired a bum for $5 to help me get all that gear up to the Smiling Moose before anybody got there. He was like, you need a hand with all this? I'm like, actually, there's 4 cases that I could really use your hand getting up these stairs.
Dude, God bless you, or whatever you believe in, bless you, dude. That is we're a 3-piece, and sometimes for bigger tours or bigger shows, like, we'll travel with people, but obviously for the 75% of it, we don't. And that stuff really does get to a lot of people. And again, it's like, it was really just like almost like an aha moment for me, where I was like, this fucking dude is doing it himself. Have you been to La Crosse, Wisconsin, to the warehouse?
Many times. I burst my appendix loading all that gear up those stairs.
I hope American health insurance covered that for you.
They did. It was Obamacare at the time. They came in. They were like, "Hey, so your work permit says you make under $10,000 a year. Is that true?" I'm like, "Yep." They're like, "Sign here." I'm like, "Sweet."
Did they have to remove it?
It was already, I had an appendicitis for 5 days and I didn't know. I was just in a lot of pain. And then I played La Crosse, Wisconsin, and was sweating buckets loading up those 47 stairs. And then I slept like a baby that night, drove home from the end of that tour. And then 5 days later, I was all full of toxins from the appendix bursting. So,
oh, God. Yeah. So you were back home whenever you had to have surgery and shit?
No, I started another tour 2 days after I got home, meeting a band in Long Island. And the first show I played with the band, that night I couldn't sleep, tried going to the pharmacy. And then that morning I checked into a Long Island hospital for like 8 days. Yeah.
Dude, those, the thing that, I always go back to is like why we're doing this. Like, that story right there is why we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like metaphorically speaking, like, no, I don't want you to have appendicitis, or me either. But like, those stories are just like, no one's ever taken that away from us or you,
Yeah, there's so many near-death experiences with just driving the van and the breaking down. And also, like, another thing that I wanted to ask you about with the whole converting fans is, like, for instance, when my van broke down, a fan came forward and did a crowdfunder for me, which looked really good to my fans and labels. Was like, that's my...
Is that Tom calling you?
That was my timer to restart the camera, which I already did it because I saw it stop. My camera records 30 minutes and it's annoying. I have to reset it every time.
Nice.
But I was going to ask if your band has done any like crowdfunding where that like really proves fans converting and stepping up.
Yeah, every awkward phase. That's the name of our first record. Every Eternal Boy record was crowdsourced, and every time it went 300-400% over what we had asked for, and wow. It is humbling. A part of me does feel a little weird about those. I mean, we fulfill every one of them. I mean, but It feels weird, but yeah, I mean, there are moments in time where you're like, it galvanizes you and you're like, oh my God, like this is it, dude. Like this is why we're here. And that's probably 20% of being in a band is like you get those moments. I think maybe it's fair saying 20 to 25%. And they are enough to galvanize me every time and be like, okay, here's why I'm doing this. Here's why, we spend 7 months a year trying to do this. But the conversion part, I think, happens in a multiplicity of ways. It can happen in that kind of weird moment where somebody steps forward and crowdsources a van for you. I mean, that is a moment of a conversion. It can be that person that comments, yo, I just saw this ad on Facebook for this, or like I saw this ad on YouTube. Like, how did I not know about you? Yeah. Or maybe it's the merch order from Singapore that says, yo, dude, me and my friends like can't get enough of this. Like, and they, buy a bunch of merch that you end up losing money on sending it to Singapore, Yeah. The conversion rates come in a plethora of ways. If we're talking about digital conversion rates, you're talking about various levels. First, you need to prompt them. They need to see it. They need to like it. And then they need to physically go and like your page or engage with you on social media. That stuff can be done very easily on Facebook marketing or Instagram marketing. Once they have liked your page, we have 25,000 Facebook likes. Like, we better be converting at least 25% of those, or I'm not doing my job. Right. Once you get to that point, it gets even more difficult, believe it or not. Liking your page is like 2% of the battle. It's getting them to convert from that point. And again, coming to a show, conversion rate. Buying merch, conversion rate. Spotify liking you or listening, conversion rate. So they come in different ways, but it's all about getting those conversions and then tracking them. So knowing analytics and knowing how to use the interface, Google Analytics for it, and it all becomes challenging to do it quote unquote correctly.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because getting that like or follow is the easy part, and then converting after that is so difficult, because you're still trying to juggle the getting fans to come follow you, but you're also trying to get them to convert, and then you're also trying to track who has converted and if it's worth going to La Crosse, Wisconsin to play, because do you have sales from that, or do you just have YouTube views?
Exactly.
So that's a really valid point. So back to my point of getting a team and a label. No, this is great. As you led me back to this, is like I feel overwhelmed even thinking about managing all that, and I know that a label always doesn't. We've been lucky enough to have a team that is really experienced and knows how to handle that stuff and realizes right away that they have to, because I think a lot of these guys starting labels don't realize that. Yeah. And are basically just a fifth band member or sixth band member or whatever, figuring it out as they go. So I hit a wall where I felt like that's where I'm at. Is like, wait, I have to figure out how to market my new music video that I just spent $3,000 on. Where do I begin? So it's amazing.
All great points.
Yeah, like it's great that you know how to do all that, but I already feel like I'm over my head with writing songs, and now I'm doing this podcast, which I enjoy doing, and I learn a lot about the stuff that I need to learn about through this, literally. Right. But when I was like touring, especially, it was like, well, when am I going to do that? Like, when am I going to sit down and figure all that out?
It's just, dude, it's an, sometimes when I, because I was booking the festival when Eternal Boy's new record, Bad Days Are Over, was coming out in April. And I sat down probably 3-4 days in a row and looking at a blank computer screen saying, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even know where to begin. And I think that feeling is very natural to have. It's how you kind of manifest that into, like, can you spend 8 hours learning how to, be Google Analytics certified? No, you oftentimes cannot devote the time to do that. A competent label and team is incredibly important. I just got a notification that Mark Hoppus is now live on Twitch. Did you get that too?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. But so it's very important to get a competent team. I mean, unfortunately, most people aren't as competent as they should be, but I think you and I still live in the romanticized version of the music scene too, where it's like, Who cares about that shit? Let's fucking grind it, go on tour, and the label's gonna do all that, you know?
Yep.
Which it's just never, ever, ever. Unfortunately, I always tell people, like younger people or bands, like, dude, you and I and our generation, there is no better time to have grown up than you and I did. There's literally the only thing that could have been better is that if your band and my band blew up in 2006, you know?
For sure, yeah.
But there's no better time to have grown up because we lived through that romanticizing part. And nowadays, it's just like, it's just different. You know, it's not bad different, but it's different in a more kind of like, dream way. Like our dreams were so potent when we were 16, 17, and 18. And it still is for me, which is why I'm in my 30s still doing it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's still such an important thing. But if I could comment on your team is great. Honest to God, I think that in terms of summer years, and I don't know how much you want to talk about, you know, your band and that back end of it, if that's the point or anything, but I do think that your team is kind of like what you need to have, and you did it before you played a show, so fuck you.
Yeah, it's funny that like it kind of happens that way. Now we did get signed as Mainsail way before we announced any of this, and luckily, what I was able to bring to our small team, which was just a 4-piece band at the time, was touring up the West Coast, knowing how to be a little DIY booking agent and make sure that the bands all get their friends to come out. And that inevitably led to us being discovered by some of Pat Magnarella's team at just a small backyard show. But like having those dates on your website of like, oh, these guys have one night off a week? Like, wow, and they're just starting out.
Is that what Mainsail was? They were touring as much as Rosedale was?
Smaller, but it was like we would do a 3-week run, and then in November we did another 2-week run. But it was a lot of the venues and bands that Rosedale had been playing with on the West Coast.
Got it.
Stepping up and being like, yeah, sure, you know, you could play our show in Vegas. So
and Pat, is that the same Pat that was the Goo Goo Dolls?
Yeah, he's still managing the Goo Goo Dolls, and I think he managed Rise Against for a while.
Rise Against, yeah.
And he was managing Green Day, and then now, you know, he wants to have this passion project of being a label, and we're really lucky to be where we are in the world and getting hooked up with him. And, you know, not to say that I was the whole reason we got signed. Mainsail already had like a good following, especially in the Soma world down here in San Diego. So it was kind of easy for me to jump into this band and take it to the little steps that Rosedale was able to keep, you know, doing, right?
Dude, I mean, there's something to be said about, you know, combining your work ethic in any project. You know what I mean? I feel like someone like you could parlay to be an agent so easily. You know, someone like you could parlay into be working as an A&R at a label so easily. You know what I mean?
I've heard that many times, even from some pretty reputable agents and managers. But it's like that to me is like, oh no, what have I done? I've never wanted to be that. I've never wanted to be. And I look at someone like you where you like not only book your own tours and get out there and tour like I did, but you're like, hey, if I'm not going to get on a huge stage at a huge festival, I'm going to make a festival with a huge stage and put my own band on it. And that's like everything that Kevin Lyman told us to do, right? Literally right there.
We could spend a whole, let's call him. I'm going to add him to the call. One sec. I'm kidding. But he pretty much taught me everything I know. I mean, the Space Pimps did a whole Warped Tour many years. Then we followed a tour where he said he would never put us on again if we didn't stop. And then, you know, in the last run, he put Eternal Boy on when we returned. I don't know, man. There's been very few people that have ever helped me personally. I can name them on one hand, and Kevin Lyman happens to be one of them. So that is everything that Kevin Lyman said. But, you know, I do think that there's value in doing what I do, you know, I mean, obviously if I want Four Chord to be in every city, you know, I mean, I want Four Chord to be something like that. But at the same token, in doing all this, I am becoming a control freak, which I don't like.
I feel that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, yeah. I don't like, and I do like. It's like I always thought that there needs to be one person in a band that does all this stuff. You can't have like too many chefs in the kitchen, or it ends up becoming way too dangerous and toxic for band members and stuff. So it's good to have somebody that there is a you or me in a band, but like now it's like I want to know what towels are going to be purchased for the band's on-stage towels so I can, you know, price check it. I want to know where they're getting the liquor from. And I find myself being like, dude, just fucking let it go, dude, and let it happen, you know? So it can push you in many different directions.
Yeah, and it creates a lot more work because when it comes to a lot of things in this band, I'm the only one who knows how to do that task. And I'm the only one.
Are you that guy in this band still?
Oh, totally. Setting up lights, good. Programming the lights, making sure that everything to do with the show is organized. And luckily, the agent kind of told us, you know, hit pause on booking all these tours and shows because we want to get you to sell out the Casbah so we can pitch you to some bigger tours. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to do the booking anymore, but it's like, but we need you to edit our music. We need you to edit a live music video. So figure that out. And it's like, I'm the one who knows how to do that. So I get overwhelmed with that stuff because I'm also over here like, I'm only getting pulled further and further from my entitled vision that I had up to 2018. That was me. I'm so important, and everybody's going to get to see how fantastic I am once this is done. I'm trying to find an hour or two where I could squeeze in some songwriting sessions and demo it, and you know, those used to be the things that were churning in my head all the time. It's like, well, can that second verse be better? And now I'm like, oh man, I got to run around and make this work and that work. And it was the same way when I was touring too. I can't imagine booking my own festival and running that and having huge bands and having to deal with their riders and all that. But like, you know, that's
it's insane. But
it takes us away from that dream, essentially.
It does feel that way, but then, you know, you're absolutely right. I really can't argue against what you're saying. You articulated it better than I could. But there are moments where, like, you know, I'm at the festival and, you know, there's everything you could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And then, like, you look out and you're like, dude, there are 10,000 people here. You know, or like, dude, like, Eternal Boy just played the biggest, I'm speaking, hopefully, in 2 weeks, you know, if or when Four Chord happens, you know, knock on wood, that all that's going to happen. You know, that will be the biggest domestic U.S. show that Eternal Boy has ever played, or the Space Pimps ever played. So it's like, what I look at that as is, you know what? Fuck the booking agent that told me that I look like Jimmy Neutron and I should cut my hair. Fuck the dude that told me that I should lose 10 pounds, you know, from a major record label. It's like, let's just do it and get those bands that are on those labels here. You know, and I'm really motivated to do that. I'm really motivated to. I have a fire that in me that I don't really know where it's derived from. Considering like my whole family are like in the medical field. They're all doctors and nurses, and like, you know, I don't know where it came from, but I really value it, and I hope that the spark never goes out because I do find my. I find my like moment, my drug there. Like I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any shit like that. But like that is my drug, dude. It's like, you know, I was gonna frame before, you know, Blink wasn't able to play. Dude, that confirmation email, subject title, Blink 182 confirmed Four Chord Music Fest, and seeing Eternal Boy's name four names down from Blink, it's like, dude, like 17-year-old, it wouldn't even be a possibility. Like it was, you know, it's, so I still find a lot of joy in that process. I love the process. I really enjoy every day waking up, looking at ticket counts, seeing, you know, where are the ticket counts coming from? You know, do I, you know, if they're, you know, a ton in Ohio, do I increase the ad spend in Ohio? Do we get a street team on the ground in Columbus at Sad Summerfest, which was 3 days ago in Columbus, and have them hand out flyers? You know, it's a combo of the new and old school. Old school is the only way to go for me.
That's a good way to put it. A combo of the new school and the old school, and those little payoffs that you get from doing that boring behind the scenes grinding. I'm glad that you find it entertaining and it inspires you even more, and it's fun for you. I mean, I won't lie. Getting those confirmation emails from big venues for me too. It is exciting. It's like, fuck yeah, the things that I've been trying to figure out for years, I'm finally figuring out. Like 22-year-old me would be so proud right now.
Right.
So yeah, those little payoffs are huge, and man.
But I do understand your side though. Like there comes a point, like if where you gotta focus on your music, and I take time out, all the time to write songs. I'm actually working with a few like people that I met, the 5 people that helped me in the scene. Like, I'm writing songs for like other people in other genres, that is making me like exponentially a better songwriter, those little moments for me, like it's not even that confirmation email, but it's that, dude, this fucking melody I just came up with, like we have band practice at 4:30 today here, right? And it's like we're working on this new song that is not anything that we would ever do, and it's like those moments are still so important to me. Like now I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, dude, like when is this all gonna end? And that really scares me because, like, dude, I'm not going to be 50 playing, pop punk. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be. Maybe I will, actually. I don't know. But you start getting to the point where you're early on. You're like, dude, like, when am I going to be 21? Like, fuck, dude, we need to get on the road. My parents won't let me. Like, and now you're like 30, and I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, I should have done it at this point. But all that stuff crosses your brain when you grind as hard as you or I.
Yeah. I'm of the mindset of as long as I'm evolving and doing what I love, maybe it's not going to be anything close to pop punk anymore. And a lot of my stuff, my newer stuff, is a lot more pop, radio, maybe even indie. And I never really considered myself an indie fan. I just naturally kind of tied the two together and went after sounds that I liked. And I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing, and you're really proud of these new songs. And yeah, like I talk about this all the time with guests on my podcast, is like working in other genres with other artists is so beneficial to evolving your own music and getting out of the same progressions and melodies that you've already used and sounds.
Oh yeah.
So I'm excited to see some of your new stuff. I love the new album, by the way. Congrats on that. Yeah.
Thanks. Are you so, when you say you're writing stuff that's more indie, is that Rosedale stuff under Rosedale?
It's going to be under a new name because I've had too many issues with this name Rosedale, that especially in the marketing side and like getting new people to find me. I've gotten emails and messages and comments. I've been looking for your music for 2 years, and there's so many other Rosedales, and I finally found this song. And then I also have this band from Chicago called the Rosdales, that's spelled the same, that has been telling me to change my name since 2009. So
what?
They went and trademarked it, but I know they handed us papers and
cease and desist.
Yeah, and they called a couple venues on our very first American tour.
Fuck off.
And managed to cancel the show because they said we're gonna basically everything that's made at the door we're gonna have, and it's just been
Are they
a
like
big
a
mess.
legitimate band? They tour and
They've been around since 2004. They changed their name to the Rosdales after being called the Onlys, and I don't know. I don't want to give them too much publicity here, but basically, I don't know what I'm going to call my new stuff yet. Right. But I do kind of want to just shop it around, as the dude who used to be Rosedale is going to be called something else. And if they're like, hey, just call it Mike Liorti, I'm not going to say no, but I would like to just have a name that is easily searchable and is unique and is clever, and that's been really hard to find.
But, dude, yeah. Watch 90s movies and see things and words they say in it. That's what we do all the time. We need to find song names.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But Summer, I was about to say Summer Wars by accident, because there is a very popular pop punk band from North Carolina called Summer Wars. But Summer Years, that's your priority right now?
It's my side priority. It always has been since I joined Mainsail, but we have management we actually don't have management, but the label kind of acts as our management and tells us what to do. And then, a lot of the times that's me going and recording 3 hours of, hey, this is Summer Years and you're listening to QSI radio, blah, blah, blah. Just little tasks like that. I'll definitely drop everything and do it.
So they're a big push to radio. I noticed you guys have a lot on your Instagram and stuff. You guys have a lot of seems like a radio push, both digitally and physical or FM radio.
Yeah, we've gotten on a couple stations in New York, and already at 91X, even Mainsail got a lot of love there from Tim Piles.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we've been like already on a little bit of a head start with that, and I think that's another reason why Pat and his team were like, wow, these guys like, you know, are more than just a local band.
Song's so good, dude. The song,
thanks, man. Thank you.
I'm not no bullshit, dude. It's just like I could even show you I don't even want to show you the play number on my iTunes or on my Spotify. It's
thanks,
like,
man.
It is so refreshingly old school, but is not, you know? It's like so... It's just exactly, and I don't know the dudes in your band, but like based on that song, like I already know, you know, what, you know, where their heads are at in terms of their influence. But dude, it is just me and my friends here, like a bunch of bands in Pittsburgh. I'm friends with like the guys on Punchline, a band called Lookout Loretta from Pittsburgh. Like that's all we listen to here, man. It's such a good fucking song.
Sweet.
It is so solid. It's so simple, but like the melody is just so perfect, man.
Thank you. Yeah, Nick was the one who wrote that song, and like I was kind of in the studio as they were tracking it and contributed the woes. And other than that, it's Nick is totally one of us, you know. Grew up in the early 2000s punk rock scene. And
is that the lead singer?
Yeah, Nick's the lead singer. And so that's why, like, when we hung out when I was touring down here and we started playing acoustic shows when I moved down here, it was like, it just makes sense to team up with someone who actually gets it and understands this. And I've even found a drummer down in San Diego now that is totally Travis Barker-esque and understands my parts and my songs. So it's great to relocate down here and have all that going. It's just been a little overwhelming getting like back to my groove of like, I'm going to get all these songs exactly how I want them, and then I'm going to go out on a big tour. It's like, especially with COVID, it's kind of forced me to hit pause on all that.
100%.
But
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. It was a much needed break. Not saying I wanted it, but you know, it was a break that really was, you know, very reflective, you know, of just kind of one, appreciating what I had whenever COVID wasn't around, and also appreciating that, you know, it's okay to take a break. I mean, you're not breaking up. You're not done playing music. It's okay to take 2 months and be like, yo, dude, I'm just going to go chill, write some music, you know, go on the beach, whatever you do, you know?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, I've had friends tell me like, dude, why don't you just take a year off and like rebrand and figure all this out? Like, you're just spinning your tires. And I was always like, no, like I'm making new fans when I get out there. I can't just hit pause on making new fans. I'm not at 1,000 fans yet. And then like this break was like, and moving here in general was kind of like, hey, why don't you just like try saying yes to other things, and
very good point,
and see what happens. And I got huge opportunities for Rosedale because of it. I got to play a almost sold out House of Blues main stage show because I was in Mainsail and Mainsail couldn't do it, and I got on it. You know, it was a free event, so everyone was able to come out and see what I did. And ever since then, I go to shows and people come up to me all the time like, hey, you're that one-man band, Rosedale. I saw you at House of Blues. And I'm like, wow, it finally happened when I hit pause. Like, who would have thought? You know?
Do you miss anything about Toronto or Ontario?
I mean, going to Leaf games and Raptor games with my dad, hanging out with my cat. Other than that, I mean, the music scene was not that great to me. I'm going to be honest. I liked going to the Horseshoe. I liked seeing some of my favorite bands come through Toronto. I love the big shows. I love the small shows. But whenever I would play, it seemed like everyone was just canceling and not coming out, and
yeah.
I get that in a lot of markets across the country, and I get it. Like, I didn't have the team behind me to make it a really enticing show to come out to, especially if it said $5. It's like the perception is like, oh, it's going to be like my cousin's band who played for $10. Like, it's going to be worse than that, or whatever they're thinking.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, you know, you talk about value, you know, and what kind of value is it when you get music for free or you pay a quarter of a penny for music? I mean, music in general, I think, has devalued a lot over the last decade. But, you know, I do think there's still some value over cheap DIY VFW shows. But to the person that like goes to see like Sarah McLachlan and Dave Matthews Band at like a big concert, and then they're paying $100. I'm like, this is $5. Like, I don't get it. Like, is this going to be like a Metallica cover band?
Right. And I'm not saying the ticket price has everything to do with it. I just mean like I'm designing the flyer, and
I know,
I know. So, but like Toronto's a great city. I love it there, and I have a lot of amazing friends there that would come out and support. And I would, manage to get a little bit of a following off of a big show that would realize that I wasn't this big shot, so they no longer cared anymore. And I just felt like I needed to get to a place where everyone actually understood what I was after and enjoyed the sound that I was making. And San Diego always seemed to be that place. There's a few other really great markets that I loved coming through. And thanks to a lot of great friends that are of the mindset of us, of like the early 2000s punk rock sound, I lucked out in some random markets some nights. Cool. But it's like, we could have a whole hour conversation on the value of music. And I just feel like we could talk forever, Rishi.
We could, man. We could. I hope we do eventually.
Yeah, I can't wait to finally hang out with you again, and maybe finally go to a Four Chord festival.
Maybe some of you should play a Four Chord festival.
We would love that. I've been telling them what a great dude you are, and how this is our opportunity to get on the East Coast. So
it is, dude. It is.
Maybe we have a big tour coming up.
Don't make me put an offer into your agent, dude. I'm only going to message you about this, okay?
Dude, that would be great. Even if you went straight to our agent, I would appreciate that too.
Of course.
But dude, thank you so much for hanging out with me, taking the time to do this. I learned so much. I'm sure my little following is going to learn a lot from this too. So I appreciate it
very much, man. I admire you as much too, man. And keep grinding, man. Don't ever lose that fire, man.
For sure. Four Chord Music Festival, Eternal Boy, Rise Against. That's all you need to know. Happening September 17th.
Get your radio show host now.
I'm really excited. I hope it all goes well. I know it will. And congratulations on this, dude. You deserve every eyeball on you at that show. So
appreciate it very much, man. Hope to see you soon.
All right. Thanks, dude.
Peace.
All right. Thank you so much checking this episode out. Big thanks to Rishi taking the time out of his insanely busy schedule, I'd imagine, to educate us and be on the show and ask me a bunch of questions. He kind of became the host of that one. Thank you for checking out this episode of State of My Art podcast. If you like what you saw or heard, if you're listening to this, be sure to follow, subscribe, click like, leave a comment. All that stuff really helps me, and it'll help you see more episodes with fantastic artists and industry folks like Rishi. We'll see you next week for another episode of State of My Art podcast.